Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu salam ala Rasulillahi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Halim wa salim bikum. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi barakatuh. Lil ikwani ikhwati fi din. Wa salamu ala mani taba huda. Lil ikwani fi Africa, Europa, America, wa the Caribbean, wa kuli makan. My dear brothers and sisters, I'm going to do something different today. Something's been on my mind for a while, and I saw a caption, and I've been following the events of what has been happening in the United States as far as its support for Gaza and its non-support for it, and support for Israel, and then support for the Arabs. And there was something that happened here about a week ago or so that was very troubling. And I'm going to do a two-part thing about this because we have a situation where we have Black folk who are basically in the center of this. And you say, well, what do you mean by this? Well, I explained this a little bit more in depth. But we've had a tumultuous relationship with the Arabs and the Afro Arabs since almost about 1700 years, to be honest. About 1700 years, we've had a tumultuous relationship with them. And so a lot of us don't understand the history about them, nor do we care to understand, because we have the pain and discord of what has happened with our relationship with them. And so I'm going to talk something more about this and whatnot. And also, as you see my caption, where I gave you something here where you see the Afro Arab belt. All of these here where you see in this green here is where the people are either Black and, Black Africans, but they're Arabs, to mixtures of Black and Arabs. They're everywhere. Now, Morocco and Algeria, in particular, these two present a different situation than, say, Mauritania. Mauritania began to have Afro Arabs to come and stay into Mauritania, which I've had talk about history about what happened there, and they resided there in Mauritania among the Amazigh. But Morocco in itself, 90% or more of the Moroccans are not Arab with DNA stock, but they are Arab because of culture and language. See, and Algeria is the same way. Algeria is actually Morocco. It's just that the French split it up, because Algerians speak the same language. There's no difference between the two. And and you see this Afro Arab belt. All of these areas here, you have Black Arabs in it. See, so this is why I want to talk about this and clear some of this up. And we know, you look at this man here, he looks, when I put my, my face, I was already speak Arabic, I got you to speak, excuse me. The face veils, I look similar to this as you see me in other broadcasts. This man here is classified as an Afro Arab. And so this, again, is why the picture about the Arabs is very difficult, because we have Arabs who are pale, look no different than any other European Tubab or American Tubab, looks no different, but he's Arab. Then you have those that look like me and those that look like this. So there's a confusion. And I'm going to backtrack later in another segment to talk about this relationship. It's about 1,700 years in the making. And it's been very tumultuous, very tumultuous. And I'll get into one of the most famous of the historians. He was one of the first gynecologists. He was a scientist. He was very gifted. He was a black man, and he had pointed sayings in the 7th century and part of the 8th century about this topic that I'm talking about right now, about his message that he gave to the Arabs himself way back. And they have discounted his letter, and many people don't know about that and about his book, but you should, and I'll get into that in another segment. Okay, let me see who's come here. Well, alaikum salam rahmatullahi barakatuh. Thank you, my dear brother, for showing up today, and I'm happy and honored that you've come here today. It was just a short notice because it came on my mind. I said, let me do this, and and talk about this issue because it should be talked about. So thank you very much, my dear brother. Jazakallah khairan. Okay, so I want to touch on something here. If any of you have been following what's going on in the United States, the war with Israel and with the Palestinians, many of the Palestinians and many of the ulama and notable people who are Arabs is calling this the Israeli war against the Arabs. And inside the United States, as you understand it to be, United States is always a cauldron of hate and genocidal racist tendencies. And since 9/11, the relationship between the Tubab and the Arabs have been contentious as also, leaving us as Africans in between. The Africans are not sure which way they should pull because they don't want to pull for the Tubab because we have our own war and battle with the Tubab. We have a hard time siding with the Arabs because the way the Arabs have treated us for decades in America. But the African is more universal than anybody. And we have this tendency to love and to show kindness and forgiveness to all humanity. And there's a reason for that, because Subhanahu wa ta'ala has put us here on this earth first. You saw my talk a couple of days ago, which I will conclude another day from now or so, about the doggone people and about the interstellar space. Subhanahu wa ta'ala gave the black man a defined history and a legacy and science, mathematics, economics, agriculture, writing, educating. He gave all of this that. See, and so this is well before the quote unquote Arabs came, well before the Tubab came. We've already had this established. Now, going back to the United States, the situation here about what's going on, they're closing up the accounts. They've been doing this for years. And many Africans, okay, what I mean by Africans in America, I'm talking about the African who were born in America and the Africans who have migrated to the Americas. Both of them are African people. And they've had their accounts, bank accounts, closed up because many of them have Afro-Asiatic names. So therefore they are lumped together with the Arabs in the sense that they see this name, so they discriminate based upon the name. And we know this and we see this. And since 9/11, as you heard me say, the Tubab has been relentless in his attacks of the Arabs, having them investigated, have them stopped, while traveling while Arab, okay, coming to the border while Arab. The minute they see them, they come in, they look at the name, they sure they're Arabs, they detain them, and so forth and so on. Now with the war with Israel, and now we have the same problem again where we have investigations opening up on many Arabs for no reason except they're Arab. Okay, bottom line. And because they do not side with the Israel, so therefore they are being investigated, had their bank accounts closed, they are being maligned at work and at school. This situation here at school in Massachusetts has taken on a deadly genocidal nature, where now there's a genre passing across the United States where the slogan is kill all Arabs. So the black man, the African, is in between here because both parties have been unjust towards him. And no one can say that's a lie. We know the history of the Tubab, what he has done to the African on the continent, in Europe, in America, and elsewhere. We know that. We know what the Arabs have had a tumultuous relationship with us as well. So we're caught in between. And we have to talk the facts as it is, in this sense that many of us, I know, I lived in California. I saw how they even treated me. And in many instances, they have mistreated us unjustly. And we have grown to have a hatred towards them, even though they're in our family tree. And I told you this, and I've said this many times before. Don't let the paleness of their color distract you from what's hidden in their DNA, especially those in Jordan, Lebanon, and so forth. You saw my picture here of the map. The Afro Arab is all the way across, all the way up in Syria and so forth. Now they are in Lebanon and you know, we all these areas, all of this. I mean, the Afro Arab is there. See, and again, we know the Afro Arab, meaning that he is partial black. Even if he doesn't want to admit that, even though he discriminates against his black brother, but still you cannot hide the DNA. So when we look at this, brothers and sisters, and why I'm talking about this is because, again, we're in the middle of the road here. And so we have our situation where we have a brother who has our DNA markers. He does. I'm telling you right now. And I'll get into another segment. I covered this years back. I'm going to get into another segment. Some of it I'm going to get is sexually charged. I don't mean pornography. That's not what I mean, brothers and sisters. But I'm going to give you some instances of talking about genetics and so forth and so on. And some of it is sexual in nature. But we're adults here. This is not for children. We're adults. But I want to get back with you to in another segment to talk about this issue as well, and about what is famous historian said about the Arabs, Afro Arabs there in the Jazira Arab. And his take on this issue is famous because he was 100 years removed from the Prophet alayhi salatu salam. He knew of his family, and you'll be shocked at his results, what he's given here. And this, again, brothers and sisters, why I'm talking about this, because it's related to the thing of Egypt. Remember, Kemp, I start talking about, because we're talking about what? The interstellar space. How did the black folk, I gave you the first lesson, explaining how the original Egyptians, quote unquote Egyptians, Kemites, okay, how they were black folk. I gave you all the evidence, eyewitness accounts by the Tubab himself, and the DNA analysis, the skull analysis, and the hair textures that they found in the royal mummies and elsewhere in other areas where the ancient Egyptians lived. And they took strains of the Romans and the Greeks and other Tubab who came into Kempt to live. And this one European developed a test, and so you can designate who was what. who was black, who was white, and so forth and so on. And also we have the Mellon test by our famed historian Sheikh Diop of Senegal, who made a test to determine the melanin of the skin of the mummies. And the test was approved, and he showed by great evidence that the black folk were there, and they were the original people of Egypt. And again, now this is the contention we have. We have our Egyptian brothers today are on YouTube, especially about a year ago. All this, their racism popped up when they did a picture about who I think was Nefertiti or something of this nature, and they showed her to be a brown, light brown, black woman, because again they have been painted white. So we had Egyptians up in arms, even against their own darker skinned Egyptian brothers and sisters. Okay, we saw that. And now they've gone overboard about how anytime you, me talk about anything about our history, then they come with Afrocentrics as though we make up something. And they refuse to look at the evidence, even themselves. And many of them themselves don't say, they'll say, I'm not racist, but what's coming out of their mouth is racist. And they add and put fuel to the fire. The black people, Africans, are in between. Because we see what's happening in Jazeera Arab today. And then we're looking at two people that many of us consider to be enemies to us. Let's say it as it is. You have, and there's talk shows where African Americans in particular have been on YouTube, and they have been very, very harsh in their criticism of the Arabs and the Afro Arabs. And a lot of it's justified. But on the same token, as you heard me say in other classes, the Arabs and Afro Arabs, especially in America, have a case against the African Americans as well. Both have something against the other. And this situation has not subsided. Now, inside the United States, when you see things like this, this is dangerous. And you, as a black man sitting in the United States, and you look at this and you say, well, hey, I don't care, because these Arabs fight me at school. These Arabs fight me when I go in their stores. These Arabs do this. These Arabs do that. But yet and still, we have a common enemy who hates us both. And he pits one against the other. And we have not been able to figure it out. My message to the African Arabs there in the United States is you should have enough now to understand they pat you on the back when everything is okay. And they tell you you are better than that black man over there. They let you move in their neighborhoods. They let you even get loans so you can put stores everywhere. Even in black communities, they let you have stores and do what you want to do. They let you to spout out racist epithets against the Africans in America. But yet and still, when something happens, when a group who's having to be Arab do something, okay, the AQIS, okay, now this genocidal war of the Israel in Gaza, and now they start to go after you again. And many instances we see our brothers, the African Arabs, okay, go to the media and start to try to reel us in again with the brotherhood. But that brotherhood was missing when things were going good for them. Okay, they said they were white. They said they were not among us. They said they hated us. They said they will not let us marry their daughters. But suddenly now, when they're under fire, when things are wrong, they want to go and try to align themselves up with strong black people to help them to fight against the Tuba. We've seen this many times. Now, when things go back to normal, they jump away from us, and then now we are again nothing. Okay, you know what I mean? And they discriminate against us, and they forgot. But when they need us, then there's a brotherhood. When they don't need us, then of course, then we're nothing to them anymore. You see some comments here of our brothers here. Salam alaikum, my dear sister. Abina, appreciate it, my dear sister. Thank you very much for showing up. And my dear brother here, Afro Arabian, complex, respectfully, yes, yes. I'm going to cover in another segment, okay, in another episode about some of this here, and I'm going to give you something what this famed historian that many don't know about. His books are famous because he delves into science and everything else, and he also was there 100 years removed from the Prophet. He had a working knowledge of what was there in that area, and it's going to blow many of you away because you're gonna say again, essentially the royal family of Islam. We know them and we see the paintings. We even had some of our scholars say instances of anybody who mentions that anybody of the famous Sahaba or had anything to do with black skin, they should be killed. So everybody knows about that. This is what I'm talking about. Well, we have a problem here. We got a problem. So that is another issue in itself. And the question, yes, I'll get deeper into this. My dear brother, in another episode, I gave you the map here, talking about this, the African, the Afro Arab belt. And if you look at this, you see Somaliland and so forth and so on. It's funny they said Djibouti is not part of that, but I don't know how they cannot say that because they are part of this Afro Arab belt. And we got to go back to something before I jump back to the United States again. We know that the Prophet ﷺ stated that people are Arab who speak the language, and anybody who recites the Quran and uses the Quranic Arabic is Arab, according to the Prophet ﷺ. He's not meaning, again, that you are supposed to diss your heritage. No, he's not saying that. But he's trying to give you instances of saying about the Arabic language and culture and so forth and so on. And this is where, again, we have a problem with our black brothers and sisters because many of us who hate say, look, you cannot do this, because if you do this, then you are a white Arab, because all of us have been disaffected by the actions of the Arabs. All of us, I don't care. All black folk has tumultuous relationships, okay, with our Arab brothers. See, and that's why I say we're in between this. When things go wrong, okay, we're sitting in between here. And even though this is happening, here's the thing, brothers and sisters, what makes why the African has something that nobody else has. Even with all of the stuff that's happened with the Arabs in Africa, what they have done, what they have not done, many of us went to bat for our Arab brothers anyway. How many have went to bat for us? Huh? You think about that. How many of, even in Islam, the ulama and fuqaha who are not Africans, who write fatwas all the time, they don't give us any help about what's going on in the Sahel. That's why I'm saying the relationship between us and our Afro-Arab brothers is tumultuous. We show love, even if we've been hurt, and we come to bat. Look what South Africa has done for our brothers there. And we had other African countries who have now stepped up to talk against what has happened. Now that put their foot down and say, we don't want this anymore. And they start to have harsh relationships with the Israeli, irrespective of the historical problems between us. See? And what's also troubling is this, because why I say that, a number of years back, me and my wife, we were sitting there looking at the Olympics. And I'll never forget this. We were looking at the Arab broadcast because it was in Arabic language. We were sitting there listening to them, and they showed some long distance runners who were very dark skinned, almost like this brother here. And the announcer made a racist comment by saying, he started calling them black Arabs. They weren't black. I mean, they weren't Arabs. He just said black Arabs, and he said it in a derogatory sense. So even among the Arabs, there's contention. And we know this. See, we know that there's a contention because we know the northern tier of Jazeera Arab, talking about Jordan and other places like this, Lebanon, there is contention for darker skinned Arabs. We know that. So even they have their own squabbles among themselves. See, and so the Afro Arab belt, the brothers take on many different aspects. Even though some of them are light-skinned and so forth and so on, they still pass for black folk. You take him, there's many African Americans that look like him. There are many Fulani, I know, my heritage, who look like him. But they classified as Afro Arabs, which I've talked about, many of these classes about, like in Sudan and so forth and so on. And so, brothers, sisters, I'm not going to tell you which way you go on this, but only thing I will say to you is this: even if what has happened to you, I had incidents even in the United States, especially when I became Muslim. I saw things in the masjid was not right. I saw the way we were treated; it was not right. I even had some of them come to talk to, I'm sure Afro Arabs come to me to talk to me as though we're second-class Muslims. And I saw the way when the Tubab converts come into the masjid, how they were respected and treated. But when a black man, an African, came, then they were not treated with the same accordance. They were suspect. And you see this in North Africa today. An African American comes into the fray, he's suspected. They'll tell you straight out, they think that you may not be a Muslim. And yet, a Tubab comes in from France, from Spain, from America, from Boston, from another place. They don't suspect him of being a spy, even though he is one. Okay, even though he's working against another Muslim, and he's not Muslim because that's his job to be Muslim. But he come here, he's immediately respected and thought of as a Muslim. I've seen that. I've experienced that when I came here in Morocco as well, where I had them talk to me in certain the way, So I started going after him in history. I started talking to them other things. I shut them up, especially after being able to speak the Arabic language. I began to really get into them. It stopped that. But many of them too were in relationships with racist whites from the embassy. That's why, and they have listened to their poison about what they said about black people. So therefore, when they come across an African American, okay, then they had already this predisposition against us. But yet and still, brothers and sisters, let me say something to you about this. You heard me say many times in other programs. Even with that said, the black man leaving the United States have no problem marrying any of the quote unquote Arab women anywhere in North Africa. There is no problem. You have no problem in that regard. The men who have harbored racist tendencies against us is because of their relationships with the Tubab. But generally speaking, you don't find that. Okay? So again, I'm talking about these relationships between us because I need to talk about this, and I need to clear this up, because when we see things like this is troubling, brothers and sisters. And when you say I don't care, this could read kill all black people. And we've had that because the Klan, you see things like this. And now they're after Arabs as well. You cannot say and turn your back, because you need to sit and watch to see what they're doing. Because they will stop to go after the Arabs again, and they'll start to go back at you. I'm talking about the black man, the African in America. They'll start to come back after you again. So this is why we're sitting in between. What do? See, with that said, we have our black brothers there in the United States are coming to bat for their Arab brothers there in Gaza. And they're talking good about this, showing how benevolent we are as a race of people, even though we have been wounded. We have been wounded by many Afro Arabs and Arabs alike. We still come to bat for them when times are rough for them. But they do not show the reciprocation as we show. But things that now the young generation, I will say this. I saw when there's been things when black folks were murdered inside the United States, okay, well-known cases. I've seen them join hands with, not my generation, okay, I'm talking about like my grandchildren's generation, right now with them. Arabs and black folk, you see them, they're together, they marrying now, they're listening to the same music, they have a relationship. My generation, there's still a divide between the African American and the Arab American. We have this divide. But the people like, and say, my grandchildren's generation right now, they're not having this problem as we were having. See, so it's gotten better. You see what I mean? Because I saw programs now, and now how about all these rappers that, like I said, I don't follow them, but my daughter played a trick on me some years back. She sent me this guy. She said, "Hey, you listen to this? Oh, okay. What about this rap? I know about rap." She said, "Oh, you listen to this." So I listened to it. So she said, "Do you know who this black man?" I said, "No." She said, "He's Arab." See, so she tried to show me something, how things have changed. See, and even here in Morocco, we have black rappers who teamed up. I'm talking Moroccan rap who have teamed up with black rappers, and they made songs, some in Arabic and mixed with Arabic and English. And we have Moroccan sisters that teamed up with black folk, again, the younger generation, not my generation, but this young generation. They are more together than my generation. Okay, no doubt about that. No doubt. Okay, let me see. We got a lot of comments here. Yes. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear sister. Jazakillah long khairan. Thank you for showing up, my dear sister. Okay, how am I? Okay, okay, yeah, all right, my dear brother. And thanks. Yes, thank you very much for showing up, my dear brother. And they gave them citizenship. Yes, see, the Africans, how can I say this? We have not learned yet. We see white privilege is taking foothold inside Africa. Now, we'll have black folks and all of that. That's not true. I'm going to tell you why it's true. The Africans living in America or in the Caribbean come over here. We're denied citizenship. Huh? We're denied it. Or they'll give us stringent rules that we cannot meet. But the Tuba can come over here and less fanfare and requirements and get citizenship. How is that to be? See, the slave mentality that we exhibit in America and Africa is still with us today. We've had situations in Ghana where African Americans have bought land, okay, and start to build on it and start to put, plumbing and everything and got everything going. Some instances, they have many marks built. Then our African chiefs who gave them the land turned back around and said, look, a Tubob came to me and said he wants this. And he's giving me a price for it. And now they renege off this. And many of our brothers who spent millions are in courts there in Ghana to defend, to keep what their investment. Some have been arrested, some have been deported. See, so we still have this mentality where the white privilege is still taking place inside even Africa. And these are not Arabs. These are Black Africans. So why is it that the Tubob can come in from any place and get citizenship when me and others like me are denied? The Tubob can go into Ghana. He can go into many places. Yes, Ghana let the African Americans come in, no doubt. And some of the West African coast states, they let you. And in the East, they let you come in there. But how about the citizenship? Only Sierra Leone is starting to give it, but even Sierra Leone they're particular. And our African states still have a prohibition against people like me, but not against the Tubob. See, so we have problems all the way down the line on that. Yes, this is a problem. Yes, brother, I'm just thank you for that. Yes, I'm trying to give you the best what I can. How powerful hip hop was born with Islam. Yes, you know, black people inside the United States, and many of them know this, but some don't want to admit this. But look the way we talk. You know, you look at the black man in America. You take a black man and you take a Tubob American, and you listen to them. You didn't hear, you can't see their faces. Listen how they speak. You know which one 99% of the time is a black man, because his accent is still prevalent after 400 years there inside the United States. Think about that. The way they pronounce the words is still African. It's still African. Inside our houses, I always make joke. I used to hear my family, my father, my mother, how they would say things like the quote English door. They didn't say door, they said door. That's right. When they talk about Chicago, they say Chicago, because of the African dialect is still with us today. When we sing our songs, is our rhythm and our singing of our songs and our speech that of the Tubob? No, it's English, but it's different, isn't it? Think about that. The African is still there inside them, and it's been handed down from generation to generation. We have what is called Black English. And so when I was a teenager, we had our own, language and code and handshakes. So we always had some different things about us. So thank you one and all for showing up. And I really appreciate your appearance here today. And, I do appreciate that. Okay, yeah. I want to get back to this, brothers and sisters. And those who are here and those in the future, I like to hear your comments about what should be the position of the black man in this. We're in between here. As a general rule, we know the Tubob Americans don't like us. As a general rule, we know the Afro Arabs and Arabs in America don't like us either. Now, the younger generation, I'm talking like my grandchildren, they're, and so forth and so on, and some of my, my kids' generation, this is not more or less a problem. But my generation, it is. People my age, 50, 60, 70, and stuff like that, is a problem between us. See? So what should be the position of the black man in a situation like this? What should we do? We see this happening, kill all Arabs. Should we go to bat as we always done for the Arabs in the United States? We've always been going to bat, and we've always had them. I'll tell you something too, something that I remember this some years back. And I don't want to go deep into it because it happened now almost 15 maybe more, more than 20 years ago, well over 20 years ago. There was a situation of these two Arabs who came out of, one was from UAE, and I can't think the other was from, I can't recall where he was from. They were dating two Bob girls out of the university, okay? And both of them were brown. They're Afro Arabs, no doubt about that. They appeared at one place, and these two Bob men knew of them and started to go after them because one said, "Look, you are a, you know this, right? This is the other thing too that they're gonna have. I'm putting this in the chat. This is what they call. This is what they call the Arabs in America. Okay, you know what I'm talking about. Okay. Oh, this is. Can you see? Can you? You know what they say? YouTube just stopped this comment here, and yet they allow people to write pornography and put pornography. They don't stop that. It's very interesting. But here, yeah, okay. You know they got a term. I'll just get out of this. Okay, they got a term that they call the Arabs there. We all know what that term is, right? There's a reason they call them that because the Tuba knows of their heritage, so they call them these names. Now, the situation again is tenuous because the black man is sitting in the center of this, and again we have a situation where we're not liked on both parties. The Tuba and the Arabs don't like us, okay? So we have to ask, where do we go from here? I'm giving you to a pre-drop because I'm going to take you back to history, not in this segment. In another segment, I'm going to give you a history, and I'm going to give you a prominent black man who was there in Jazeera Arab, who was born there at that time in the 7th century. And I'm going to give you stuff that's going to blow you away. And this is a message to the Afro Arabs because you should know about him, and you probably do, but you don't want us to know about him because he's talking about your real history. See, and we should talk about that because the black man should now look at his Arab brothers in a different light. And in most instances, we do. That's why the hurt is so great. When the Arabs discriminate against us, the hurt is greater than that of the Tuba because we expect the Tuba to be this way. But we know our Arab brothers have our history in them as well. So when they go against us, it has more of a, it hurts more because you ask the question, look, man, your hair is just as curly as mine. And look at your lips, look at your nose. Why are you doing this against me? You see, we have this type of thing among us, and we try to ask why we're treated this way. But on the same token, brothers and sisters, okay, I got to be honest here too. The Africans are very ignorant. I'm talking about the history of the Arabs. They don't know, but many Africans don't know even about African history as well. And you heard me talk about this many times. See? So they don't quite understand. And when they start to spout out racist epithets against another black man, because you have Afro Arabs, why do you think they call them Afro Arabs? Huh? Why? Why do you think they call them Afro Arabs? Because they have African heritage. See? And so, and the African Arab belt stretches all the way across, as you see here in the green. So we don't have a historical background. Most of us, we don't even understand. There's the foot full of people. They don't understand anything outside of what has happened somewhere else. They do not know. And so even the Arabs, and then they come with statements that are not right. They say, oh, yeah, you speak this Arabic. You are a white Arab. I hear things like this. I even hear, even in the United States, even black people say the same thing when they don't realize that the Arabic language is an Afro-Asiatic language. It's designated out of Africa. They didn't even realize that. It's not a European language. See? And that's the ignorance that we have. So, brothers and sisters, in a nutshell, when we look at this here, kill all Arabs. And this is spreading inside the United States. Some Africans, Americans have been caught up in this because their names are Arab, Arabic, and therefore they've been caught up, their bank accounts closed up, they've been investigated, they've been probed because of their comments they make about what is happening in Gaza. And they make comments against Israel. My suggestion to you, my black brothers there inside the United States, is you keep your vigilance. I don't care if the Muslim is from Norway, he's your brother. You pray for him and for his well-being, irrespective of what his attitude is, irrespective of that. You don't stoop down to the level of those who show you learn from the Prophet ﷺ. You don't stoop to the level of people who show ignorance and hatred towards you. How about the case that happened with Bilal? Remember what happened with him? There's an incident that happened. We have incidents across the Islamic world in history that was very troubling. My suggestion to you is that, yes, you've been harmed, but you keep in mind that what's happening to them can happen to you, and it's still happening to you for 400 years. What should you do about this situation? Should you go to bat for your Arab brothers? I would say yes and no. Because you have to do only a certain amount, because since the government has a hard-on for you and for your Arab brothers, you got to be very careful, because we see now African-American who, some are non-Muslims, okay? Or some are non-Muslims and some are Muslims are being investigated because they made comments. And speaking of that, we know we've had African-American Muslims, even though they live in Washington, D.C., in Virginia, and they've been discriminated against by other Arabs, they still made jihad there in Jazeera Arab. See, so it shows benevolence. But I would suggest to all of you to exercise what we call mizan, a balance. Your Arab brother is Muslim, you have to go in his aid. I don't care, even he discriminates against you, excuse me, in his store. He's still your brother. The two Babs who are doing this, who are kuffar, are not your brother. They're in humanity, but you know what Subhanahu wa ta'ala has said many times inside the Quran about issues, not about color, about the faith and their attitudes and what they do. And they, since they don't believe in their mushrikeen, they're not your brothers. The brother who's got the store there, yes, he's erred in his ways. Yes, he's discriminated against you, black man. Yes, he's done like they did me. He's got your change that you give him. You gave it out of respect to him. In his hand, he throws the money back across the table. Or they'll accuse you of stealing when you know it's not. But he's a Muslim. He's still your brother. Muslim, aku Muslim. You have to be cognizant of that. And that's why I say you must take the middle road. This is what we do as Muslims. And I suggest also that you take up history to understand what has happened with them and why they are the way they are. Because you should understand the historical significance of this relationship between us. And one of the greatest of this is, remember Malcolm al-Shabazz, remember him? Okay, remember him? They call him Malcolm X. He gave a very interesting, and they covered this up a lot. And I did a thing on this almost 2 years ago now about him and what happened in Sudan, what happened in Saudi Arabia, who came to bat for him, what happened. And you heard me talk about this. And at that time, in the 60s and 70s in particular, the 50s, 60s, 70s, the Arab states were taking in African Americans and giving them citizenship and giving them haven from the hellhole there in the United States. Many of you don't know that, but it's true. There was a sizable African American population at one time in Cairo, there in Egypt, who escaped because of what was the marauding of the police and the government agencies and so forth, but they put an end to that. See, so they have come in history to help us when we need it. That's true. And we've done the same. So we have to look at things and be cognizant of that, brothers and sisters, and ask the question, what should we do in wake of this? The black people have their own problems there inside the United States and in Europe in particular. They got their own war with the Tubab. He's picking a war with one year, 2 years with the Arabs. He comes back and now starts to jump the Mexicans and the Central Americans. Then he comes back and starts to come after the African American again. He kind of stops his war against them, and he starts to go after the Arabs. We see this thing. And we see the groups who are adverse towards us, who are friendly with us when they need us, but then when things are going okay with them, when they can go among Tubab again, then they go away from us. That's why this relationship is tumultuous and it's very difficult, and I understand that. But on the same token, a Muslim is a Muslim. I don't care what he is. Even if he's erring his way, you have to do certain things to protect your brother if you can, if you're in position to do it. And if he's in his store selling liquor and selling pork products, as we know they're doing in Houston, even in California. I mean, even where I used to live there in California, we had one brother that came in there. He was selling wine coolers, pork, what do you call bologna and all that kind of stuff like that. I saw him do this. And I was kind of like, I didn't know what to do because this is the only place where I was living where I could go get my gas and everything, because unless I go way out to go get it, and I wouldn't buy anything else except gasoline from his store. But then we've had these problems like this. We've had brothers come to take them to task. Say, hey, brother, why are you here? And we have a lot of Muslims here and you selling this pork. See, we had that situation. It's not right. We know that. So the relationship between us is not good. We know that. And both has a case against the other, as you heard me say. Let me see here, and then I'll get ready to close here. The definition of Afro Arab is expanded to modern Gambians, additionally others who are, yes, we, I covered this about the Sudanese, what's going on in Sudan. In northern Nigeria, we have the Shawa Arabs who migrated to this region, centuries past, right? So we do have that. We know that the Afro Arabs who came in the late 600s came across and they stayed here, and they were essentially black Arabs. Okay, we know that. So this is a true case. But one thing I found is, and with the genetics, you remember Andalus in Spain? You see what happened? Many of the people don't show Arab bloodlines. In Morocco, the same thing. So we know that the Arabs who came did not mix much with the population. If they did mix, it died out, and they didn't have children. Maybe an Arab married an Amazigh woman. They had a child. That child died, and the seed was gone. But you don't have that because the Moroccans, most of them, you look at their DNA, they show nothing of the Arabian Peninsula. Everything is. They have the sub-Saharan Africa, especially Fulani blood. They have that, and they'll show Europe because the Europeans came in the 1800s in particular, and they began to stay there, dwell and marry the women there. And the black Moroccans, the black Algerians, Tunisians, and even Libyans began to go further south. We know this. We know this history. I saw a comment here where we, okay, let me see. No, here we go. Even Gula language has some African words in. Yes, thank you, my dear brother. Yes, this is true what you're saying here. It's a very interesting situation about the black people that we should never forget about. I don't care how much we think we're American, but our African ways and means always comes out in our songs, in our speech, and our words. See, isn't that true? You think about that. See, so this is something that's always seemed to be a contention, that we always have this. Salam alaikum, my dear brother. It was ordered to make that. Who was the first person who climbed up on the roof of the? Yes, all Arabs who are looking at him, just check the position history. Yes, I will give the next segment, brother, sister. I hope you stay for this. I'm going to give you something that's going to clear up a lot about this racial thing that happened in the early parts of Islam. I'm going to clear up a lot of it, just as I cleared up this thing about Egypt being quote unquote Tubab. I cleared that up. Those who watched that, who watched that, I gave you DNA. I gave you all this analysis. I've given you the skulls, how they measure the skulls, how black people have certain types of dimensions that are prevalent among black folk. We have that. The hair strands, we have those testing. We have the Millen test as well to show the Egyptians were black. And we had eyewitness accounts from the Europeans themselves, great historians like Herodias, who wrote about what he saw, and he said black with woolly hair. I mean, the evidence is overwhelming. Now I'm going to cover Jazeera Arab. And I'm going to talk about the early Islam. And I'm going to give you something that a black man was there 100 years removed at the start of Islam. And I'll give that the next segment talking about that. And I'll give you the proof behind that. See, so, yeah, my dear brother, yeah, you're welcome. And, I'm going to get ready to conclude here, getting close to Salat Maghrib for me and everything. But I wanted to give this talk about the situation between the Arabs and the black people and how our relationship should be with them. So I'm recapping here about the situation that transpired inside the United States, where we have a genre that they're going after the Arabs, especially those who are Palestinian, and we've had agencies to start to ferret out Palestinians and other Arabs and so forth and so on. And now we've had the genocidal racists who are making comments against the Arabs, and now they have a genre talking about killing all Arabs. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. America is sick, no doubt about it. It is sick with racial animus. It is sick. I mean, it's why Putin made his comment when he told African Americans here about 2 years, maybe 3 years ago. Excuse me. He told, if you want to migrate, you want to leave the United States, you come to Russia. See, because everybody, and the Russians have chided when the Americans start talking about human rights, they laugh at them and said they should stop talking, because what they're doing to the black man inside the United States, what they've done to him for 400 years, the Russians have chided them about that. The Chinese have talked against them as well, and others have talked when they start to preach to all these other countries about them, their nationality, and you're doing this. They say, look what you're doing. You even on open TV, you're killing black people. The president of Philippines got on them when they came and sent a delegation talking about some human rights in the Philippines. He said, wait a minute, I just witnessed you shooting black people coming out of a car. I just witnessed you showing policemen putting the foot on the neck of another black man. So you come here to preach to me about what we're doing in the Philippines and you're killing black people? That's the president of the Philippines, what he said some years back. See, so we're starting to see a lot of situations that is transpiring, and this is a dangerous precedent, because when you're talking about killing some people, that's genocidal. That's genocidal racism to try to eradicate somebody, and it's spreading. And brothers and sisters, that is a serious matter. And I suggest for you, black men, because you're in between. You got the Tubab here and you got the Arabs here. You in between there. So I would suggest again is you understand and you go and think about the Islamic model and whatnot. If you're not a Muslim, I suggest to you is to play middle road. You watch and observe. But you know darn well, as a general rule, the Tubab Americans are against you as a general rule. Now, the younger generation, we know, like with my grandchildren, we see more of a cohesion, more of the, the Americanism among them than in my generation. Because in my generation, there's a big separation and gap between us. Okay, big time. So I would suggest prudence and caution, and you watch and observe. See, and that's what I would suggest to you. The story I was telling you about, and I will close. The two brothers, one was from UAE, I think the other he came from Bahrain. This is some years back. They begin to date at the university, date two white girls. Okay, both of these are light brown skin Afro Arabs. Well, the brothers and some friends and a former boyfriend was not happy to see these two brothers taking white girlfriends, right? So they begin to call them saying, you know what, the N-word. Okay, that started. As 5, 6, 7, 10 of these racist whites begin to go at the two Afro Arabs. Their brothers in a car came and saw it. And they entered the fray. See, they didn't think about the Arabs and what they have been doing, but because of the universal nature of our heart, they saw them in trouble with his enemy, the Tubab, the racist Tubab. They came to the aid of these two Arab brothers. See, and we've seen this in history. And again, to recap on that, the same thing as the Afro Arabs have come to bat for the African American in history as well, especially in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. You could come to Egypt and there was a sizable African American community in Cairo who were living there because of what was happening to them inside the United States. They gave them free reign. At one time, the old president, Neri is his name. He's dead now, long gone. He was given instant citizenship to African Americans when they came to Sudan. That's right. Saudi Arabia opened up its doors, gave scholarships, free scholarships for African Americans to study there. And at one time, it was easy for African American Muslims to come to study there so they can come back to be imams. So we had all of that. So both have done something for the other in a course of history. You should be made aware of that. And I take this last comment here. Me and my friend were just arguing about DNA 2 days ago. Yeah, brother, if you look at my tape talking about this, I've given you convincing DNA, and especially the DNA, the skull measurements, and also the hair. And the Tubab hair and the hair of the African is like night and day, okay? And there's a major difference between us. And this scientist who's Tubab made he's got a test to test the strand of hair of the dead. He knows if the person was African American, African, or if he was a white man. Okay, all those tests conclude that the ancient Egyptians were black. The DNA analysis of the E1B, okay, the woman, LOA, okay, I'm talking DNA. Like my mother carries the LOA1A. I think that's what it is. And then, and on my father's side, if you go deep analysis, you'll find, even though you'll find the Tubab, because what happened inside the United States, but you'll find the E1B, which is another prevalent of the royal families of Egypt, which is typical of many African American, West Africans. We know that. So I gave you the evidence. So there's a lot of evidence. And of course, as you heard me say, and I will conclude, what the racists have done, the historians have and scientists, they were selective to trick you. They took the analysis of Romans and Greeks who died in Egypt, colonizers, and so forth and so on, interlopers, who came into Egypt, lived there, had communities, and died. They took their mummies, and then they did tests. Said, hey, look what we got here. These people here show, the R strain, which is the European. They said the ancient Egyptians were white. But they were called on that because when the famous African scientists began to get into this, and they said, okay, where did you go to get these samples? They found them in regions where the Europeans died, okay? And that's where they asked them, did you test the royal mummies? They did not do it. Did you test the Egyptian communities? They didn't do it because they knew. Finally, the racist Egyptian historian who was on TV talking about what did he say? He finally admitted, because he was saying, no, the modern Egyptians who are white and light-skinned are the ancient Egyptians. And then he said, we're basically white and mixed. He gave it was a false picture. But when he was corrected, because not evidence, he said, yes, they were black, but they weren't the N-word. He still cannot he still cannot stop his racism. So he was saying that the Egyptians were black, but they're not African. What does that mean? You know what I mean? So yes, this is a ongoing problem, brothers and sisters, and the Arabs and the black people, black folk, Africans, we still have our contention going on. That situation also is not comical, because when I saw him make his comment, I was not happy for somebody educated like him to turn back around and try to fool us again. He was caught in his lie. He said he did the test. He said ancient Egyptians were white. Then he come back and say, yes, they were light-skinned and we mixed, and they were Europeans and so forth and so on, right? Then he was corrected, because when someone gave him all this other evidence, the skull, the hair strain, and they got the DNA for royal mummies, then he said, oh yes, they were black, but they're not African. He said they were not N-word. He said they weren't African. So what kind of black people are these? And they're not part of Africa. See, so this is confusion that we talk about. And here is yes, PHS, yes, African, yes, yes. There's the variations of the E1B, the E strain. There's very many different ones. Just like the LOA, you see L1. There's many different of these, and if you look at the map, especially of the program I gave here days back, talking about the DNA, I showed the evolution of how they went down and start to migrate down to the south and so forth. Because my mother carries this LOA, okay, and whatnot, a gene, and then showed them leaving, going across, back up to up back into Egypt again, and then across going to West Africa. And that's why African Americans today are considered to be ancient Egyptians, because the ancient Egyptians migrated to West Africa and to Central Africa, and we know that. And you see the African Americans, their mothers, they have the LOA. Interesting, isn't it? And the fathers, when they didn't have the slave masters DNA, which is R, okay, I think it's R, and I forgot the other one, which is prevalent for Europe. Then you know what they did? They have the one E1B. See, E1B is prevalent among the ancient Egyptians. See, so that's the other proof to show you again that we are standing here. Fulani, Tiv, the Yoruba, the Igbo, Mende, the Mendinka, the Wolof, Jolof, Senike. You go across, all of us came, the Amazigh, all of us came from Egypt. No doubt about that. It's clear now. It's clear, brothers and sisters. So, yes. Okay, see? Yeah, see, my mother, yes. She has that. This strain here is prevalent among the females that are out of the ancient Egypt. This is very prevalent. See, you look at the DNA map, very interesting. Very interesting. And you see the arrows going, from going north and then south, back south again, up north, going back up to the northeast through Egypt again and going to West Africa. That's why my mother's Fulani. This is one of the things. And that's why I said we're ancient Egyptians. See, and that evidence is overwhelming. We got to stop looking at the racial composition of it, meaning that they try to say that the white. And last, and I will close on this. They keep saying about all of this, but why is it that they diss the ancient white historians who told the truth and said that the ancient Egyptians were black? They gave an eyewitness account of it. That's what's interesting. They don't seem to talk about Herodias, and he described them very well. Black with woolly hair. And he went all the way up to present day Iran. And he said that when he started to go further north, when he left across to the peninsula, we know as Jazir Arab, as he started going northward, he said the people, their skin color become lighter and their hair was less kinky. He said this, Herodias. See, so when they left Africa, he said that he saw the variations that occurred when he got up to Iran, it's present Iran today. He found black people there, and he said they were more of a mixture. He said they were brownish, but their hair was kinky, but less kinky. It was more curlier. See, and some even had wavy, but their skin was very, very dark. They ignored that evidence. They ignored it. I wonder why. I'll leave you for that, what you think that is. So, brothers and sisters, I'm going to have the second episode to this, talking about this issue. And I will also talk about the doggone to give a conclusion on that. It's about the interstellar space. And so I hope you like this talk. Please subscribe, brothers and sisters, to my talk, because I'm going to tell you like it is. I'm going to give you, when I get something, I'm going to give it to you straight out. Okay, I'm not going to mince words. I'm going to give you straight, tell you exactly what's going on and whatnot. If you like this, please subscribe, because I have a lot of people who are watching, but no one's subscribing. See, so please subscribe to my station and whatnot. Until the next time, I will give another talk on this, and I'll get to this famous historian, scientist who was there at Jazira Arab at the time, and I'm going to give you something about the true nature of the Arabs and why they became Afro Arabs, who they were, and what happened when they went to the Americas. I'll give you that in the next segment, inshallah ta'ala, bi'ithnillah. And so with that said, brothers and sisters, what this brother said here, just Google the black pharaohs of ancient, yes, they, you know what, they have the truth. Many have the truth, but they don't want to see this, and they don't want. And I see here, yes, brother, my mom said, yes, see the L series, yes. See, this is, I don't know what more proof you can get. That's why we're the ancient Egyptians. Egyptian females carry this L DNA label. Okay, there's LO1, there's LO, and then there's L1, L2. There's many of these variations of that from one family, and you find them among the ancient Egyptian women. How is that? Huh? How is that? See, so yes, and Amina said she's Amazigh. She's saying the same thing, because the Amazigh people, before they became Amazigh or Berbers, you know them, it's derogatory, but before they became that, they were known as Mazab people out of ancient Egypt. Mozab. And my mom apparently has that too, because it's mixture in that and everything. It is, the DNA evidence is so she's talking about here the Mozab people. Yes, they became the Amazigh and whatnot. And this is something, again, brothers and sisters, this DNA evidence is so overwhelming. So the relationship, again, between the Arabs and the black people, we have to examine it. I'm going to examine it more in the next episode. I'm going to take you back into history. I'm going to talk to you about this and how it became so contentious between us, and how the Arabs left the black heritage to become white. I'm going to talk about that because we need to talk about this so you can have understanding who's sitting in the United States. You need to understand it, and you should have an overall world history. You need this as a black person because you, in order to strengthen your knowledge, you just can't be in a vacuum. You need to study everything, study history, sciences, and so forth and so on. You need to study people and their attitudes and their behaviors. This will give you a well-rounded education. You need this. Even interstellar space, we were good at that. And then it fell by the wayside. But you should study as much as you can of that. Okay, my brothers and sisters, I will conclude with that. And I hope that you join me the next time on this episode and the episode on the doggone people. Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. Rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.